You're watching All24 News World News Program, broadcasting to you live from the capital Algiers. To the headlines. Algeria doubles down on partnerships, aligning with Serbia on global issues, teaming up with Tunisia on the economy, while Minister Attaf heads to Europe to build new ties. Also on news tonight, a U.S. Zionist strike kills an Iranian commander. Tehran threatens to bomb American IT companies in the region, and Trump slams France and Britain for inaction, demanding control of the Strait of Hormuz. The Zionist occupation passes a law to execute thousands of Palestinian prisoners. The Palestinian presidency calls it a genocide by law, and the UN is demanding it be repealed immediately. UN warns of economic fallout in the Gulf. Brent crude tops $113. The IMF says Middle East war risks a global growth shock. Welcome back. President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, received Serbian Prime Minister Dara Madad amid a high-level delegation in Algiers. Senior officials attend the meeting, including presidential advisor and key government figures. Earlier, Prime Minister Sefi Gharib held talks with his Serbian counterpart and the government palace, or at the government palace. Discussions expand to both delegations, reviewing bilateral cooperation and focusing on boosting economic ties, trade, and investment between Algeria and Serbia.
We had the discussion now about the traditional relations that we used to have for many decades. Serbia and Algeria are tightly connected for many, many years from the time of the liberation of Algeria, and we mentioned this for many times during our meetings with the Prime Minister of Algeria and also on our bilateral talks. So this visit was really re-establishing or reinforcing the old friendships with the new views and the new, let's say, aspects of our relation in the near future. But we are also looking prospectively to the future in general. That's why we signed contracts related to the taxes, but also to the touristic issues and other things that we now establish as the beginning of the new phase of our relations. There are lots of possibilities in the different aspects.
The Algerian Prime Minister highlights strong alignment with Serbia on upholding international legitimacy and international law, warning these principles face growing threats amid expanding conflicts and deepening humanitarian and economic crises. He calls for a stronger bilateral coordination and joint action in international forums to advance peace, stability, and development.
I would like to emphasize that the volume of trade and economic exchanges between our two countries remains modest compared to their potential and economic capacities, as well as in terms of the integration and partnership opportunities offered by the markets of both countries. These opportunities must be optimally leveraged to develop trade and build fruitful and mutually beneficial partnerships, especially in light of the economic reforms undertaken by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, which have improved the business climate and stimulated investment.
For his part, Serbia's Prime Minister Mako reaffirms shared positions with Algeria, stressing respect for sovereignty, international legitimacy, and UN resolutions as key to global stability.
We wish to strengthen bilateral relations between our two countries, given the historical ties dating back to the Algerian Revolution. We must activate bilateral cooperation mechanisms, foremost among them the Joint Committee, and explore new opportunities in the economic and trade sectors. There is a shared vision reflected in the positions of both countries regarding adherence to international law, respect for the sovereignty of states, and UN resolutions as a guarantee of peace and stability throughout the world.
In Algiers, Energy Minister Mohamed Arghab meets Serbian Minister Nenad Popovic, part of a delegation led by Prime Minister Mako. Talks held or highlight strong, long-standing ties and a push to renew momentum. Discussions focus on expanding cooperation in oil, gas and mining, while opening new prospects in industry, digitalization and trade. Both sides stress investment, technology transfer and leveraging Serbian expertise, particularly in mining and fertilizer production, to drive growth. President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, receives Tunisian National Council President Imad Bali and his delegation in Algiers. The meeting includes Algeria's Upper House of Parliament Speaker Azouz Nasri, Presidential Cabinet Director Boualem Boualem, Presidential Advisor Hammar Abba, and the Presidential Advisor for Economic Affairs Farid Kortal.
سعدت وتشرفت
I had the honor of meeting the President of Algeria, Abdelmajid Tebboune, in what was a genuinely engaging and productive discussion. During the meeting, I conveyed the greetings of Tunisia's President, Kais Saied. We spoke openly about the strong and long-lasting ties between Algeria and Tunisia, reflecting on the shared history that has shaped the relationship between our two countries. The conversation also focused on practical ways to deepen cooperation and further strengthen this partnership in a way that benefits both nations and their peoples.
In a similar note, Algeria and Tunisia announced the creation of Parliamentary Cooperation Forum. The agreement is signed by the Algerian Upper House of Parliament Speaker Azouz Nasri and Tunisian National Council President Imad Bali. Both call the move strategic and highlight shared views on regional and international issues. The Algerian National People's Assembly Speaker Ibrahim Boughali emphasized strong political will for a lasting economic partnership, noting growing bilateral investments. Both sides stressed raising parliamentary cooperation to more coordinated levels in regional and international forums.
Today, a parliamentary friendship protocol was signed between the Japanese National Parliament, the Tunisian Parliament and the Algerian Council of the Nation. This represents an important event and a strategic step towards strengthening parliamentary cooperation as well as economic and political collaboration among our brotherly countries.
These perspectives will help enhance and unify perspectives on bilateral and regional issues of common interest and promote engagement in areas of sustainable development, particularly in border regions, while supporting all efforts that contribute to security and stability in our country.
The Algerian Minister of State and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf arrives in Brussels in Belgium on an official visit representing President Abdelmajid Tebboune. The visit aims to strengthen renewed Algerian-Belgian relations and build a more intensive, effective bilateral partnership. The Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf calls for a renewed Algerian-EU partnership grounded in balanced interests and mutual concerns. After talks in Brussels with Belgian Foreign Minister Maxime Prévost, Attaf describes Algerian-Belgian ties as strong, cooperation dynamic and future relations promising.
Nous avons également évoqué le partenariat entre l'Algérie et l'Union européenne.
We also discussed the partnership between Algeria and the European Union, which my country advocates for a renewed approach based on a balance of interests and consideration of the legitimate concerns of both parties. I'm pleased to know the convergence of views between our two countries on these and other issues. I also reiterate our commitment to elevating the Algerian-Belgian partnership to higher levels. The foundations of our partnership are solid, the dynamism of our cooperation is strong, and the prospects for our relations are promising and rich. What is required of us at this stage is to translate this momentum into tangible achievements that will bring mutual benefit to our two countries. I'm confident that thanks to our shared commitment and the quality of the dialogue we have established, we will be able to take new steps towards consolidating our cooperation on an upward trajectory, steadily progressing towards excellence and distinction.
Minister Attaf urges improved access for Algerian products to Belgian and European markets, encouraging Belgian firms to expand in Algeria and tap into opportunities in energy, desert agriculture, industry, transport, and innovation.
Nos entretiens ont également permis d'identifier plusieurs axes d'action.
Our discussions enabled us to identify several areas of action to elevate our cooperation to the level of our shared ambitions. First, increasing the volume of trade, which currently stands at around $1.5 billion, but holds much greater growth potential. In this context, I advocated for better access for Algerian products to Belgian and European markets. Second, the need to reactivate bilateral cooperation mechanisms, particularly the Joint Committee for Economic Cooperation and the Joint Business Council, in order to give new breath to our partnership. Third and finally, the need to continue updating the legal framework governing our cooperation by updating existing agreements and concluding new ones that open up prospects for promising areas of cooperation.
Still with the economic front, Algeria and Croatia agreed to strengthen bilateral ties with a joint economic cooperation committee. After talks with Croatian Foreign Minister Gordon Garlic-Radman, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf says draft agreements are finalized and economic operator meetings will increase through the Joint Business Council.
Our meeting today provided a valuable opportunity to highlight the available prospects for cooperation and partnership across several key sectors. These are all areas that merit priority within bilateral relations at this stage. With the aim of turning these promising prospects into concrete outcomes, we agreed on the need to strengthen and better organize bilateral cooperation, particularly through establishing a joint committee for cooperation and communication, concluding negotiations on several projects, and promoting exchanges of ministerial visits between both sides.
Moving on to the war in the Middle East now, tensions from Isfahan to the Strait of Hormuz are escalating militarily and economically, with both sides signaling further moves. Washington warns of critical days ahead, while Tehran intensifies its response. All eyes are on the next 48 hours, seen as pivotal in shaping the conflict's course. Here's Zahra Farjani.
The situation in Iran is escalating fast, with new strikes, casualties, and growing threats targeting strategic infrastructure and global interests. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says a senior military advisor, Jamshid Eshaki, was killed in a U.S. Zionist strike on Isfahan, while in Zanjan, at least 4 people were killed and 26 injured after a building was hit. The Iranian army also says it shot down 2 MQ-9 drones over Isfahan, where explosions and fires were reported. Meanwhile, Iranian media say a strike targets the desalination plant on Kashmir Island in the Strait of Hormuz, putting it out of service. Iran is now escalating its response. The Revolutionary Guard warns it will begin targeting U.S. tech, communications, and AI companies in the region starting April 1st. On the ground, Iran also claims it has launched new missile and drone attacks on Zionist-linked sites and a U.S. command facility in the region. On the diplomatic front, Tehran is rejecting a claimed U.S. truce proposal.
The materials include very excessive, unrealistic, and unreasonable demands. Our stance has been clear. We have no direct negotiation with the United States.
In Washington, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the coming days will be decisive. Hegseth says U.S. strikes are weakening Iran's military, adding that Washington still has more options.
The upcoming days will be decisive. Iran knows that, and there's almost nothing they can militarily do about it. Yes, they will still shoot some missiles, but we will shoot them down. Of note, the last 24 hours saw the lowest number of enemy missiles and drones fired by Iran.
President Donald Trump, meanwhile, says he's open to ending the campaign, even with the Strait of Hormuz still closed, but is urging allies to step up.
All of those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refuse to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Number 1, buy from the US, we have plenty. And number 2, build up some delayed courage. Go to the Strait and just take it.
As the conflict intensifies, attention is now turning to the next 48 hours, widely seen as a decisive window that could shape the trajectory of the war across the Middle East.
4 people are lightly injured in Dubai after shrapnel from air defenses hit homes, triggering a fire. A Kuwaiti tanker is also hit by a drone in Dubai waters. Authorities confirm no injuries or oil spill, though material damage occurred. In Saudi Arabia, 8 ballistic missiles are intercepted, 7 aimed at Riyadh and 1 at the eastern province. Shrapnel from an intercepted drone damages 6 homes in Al-Kharj. No injuries are reported. In Iraq, a drone crashes in a desert oil field near Erbil International Airport with no damage, while a missile strikes a house, causing no casualties. Italy has reportedly blocked U.S. military aircraft from landing at the Segnella airport or airbase in Sicily before heading to the Middle East, according to a source speaking to Reuters. The exact number of planes and timing of the planned stop weren't disclosed. Meanwhile, President Trump tweeted that France denied permission for U.S. aircraft carrying military equipment to the Zionist entity to fly over its airspace. The Algerian Minister of State and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf emphasized dialogue and diplomacy as the path to resolving the Middle East conflict. Speaking after talks with Croatian Foreign Minister Gardangarlik Radman, he highlighted shared views between Algeria and Croatia on key regional and international issues.
In this regard, I would like to reiterate Algeria's call for prioritizing dialogue and diplomacy as the means to resolve disputes between the various conflicting parties. The organization is in dire need today to diffuse tensions and de-escalate the situation, putting an end to the cycle of violence and fighting. It also needs to work diligently to address the root causes that lie and continue to lie behind the lack of security and stability in all its member states and regions. The entire world is in dire need today to avoid further security breakdowns and economic losses.
To another major story, the Zionist occupation Knesset approved a death penalty bill for Palestinian prisoners, sparking criticism as racist and discriminatory. Palestinian groups warn it endangers 10,000 prisoners held under harsh, inhumane conditions. Karim Mustafa reports this time.
The death penalty in the occupied Palestine, yet another human rights violation perpetrated by the Zionist entity. In addition to an ongoing cycle of physical and psychological abuse, medical neglect, and worsening living conditions, Palestinians now face a new crime after the Zionist parliament has passed a new law authorizing the execution of thousands of Palestinian prisoners.
So far, there are more than 45, 46, 47 prisoners who may be sentenced to life imprisonment. Their cases involve killing, and therefore it is expected that the death penalty may be applied to them, which could accelerate this matter. However, until now, the details still need further verification, and the law requires more research.
This controversial legislation has sparked widespread criticism among Palestinians, as it is seen as another measure aimed at breaking the will of the resistance and bearing the Palestinian cause.
My son carried out an operation, and this decision might be applied to him and it might not. But I fear for my son's life. Last night we did not sleep. As a mother of a prisoner, and like all other mothers of prisoners, I am sure none of them slept since the news came out. Our sons have been in there for 3 years now, subjected to hunger, thirst, cold and illnesses.
As Palestinians, the loss of so many members of our community in Israeli prisons is first and foremost a great tragedy. For me as a father or brother of a prisoner, or as a wife or mother, learning that my son is to be executed undoubtedly increases the suffering, the wound and the pain we all feel as the result of this decision. Simply, it is not only unjust, but also cruel, oppressive and heartbreaking.
At the international level, this unjust law against defenseless Palestinians marks a dangerous turning point. The UN, the European Union, and Arab and Islamic nations have condemned the passage of this legislation, considering it blatantly discriminatory and a promotion of cruel and inhuman treatment.
The The Palestinian presidency condemned the Israeli occupation's approval of the death penalty for Palestinian prisoners, calling it a clear violation of international law. In a Monday statement, it cited breaches of the Fourth Geneva Convention and international human rights treaties, warning the law signals a dangerous step toward legalized genocide. The UN Human Rights Office in the Palestinian territories urged the Zionist entity to repeal the law allowing the execution of Palestinian prisoners, warning it entrenches apartheid. The office stressed Monday the need to protect prisoners and ensure fair treatment under international standards. For his part, UN High Commissioner Volker Turk said Tuesday that enforcing the death penalty would be a war crime, describing the law as discriminatory and a severe violation of international law. Additionally, outgoing UNRWA Commissioner Philip Lazzarini called the law racist, discriminatory, and unprecedented. In a similar reaction, several European countries condemned the occupation's approval of the death penalty for Palestinian prisoners, calling it a breach of democratic principles. Germany, France, Italy, and the UK expressed deep concern over the law's discriminatory nature. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez also denounced the Knesset vote, calling it disproportionate and highlighting the Israelis committing the same crimes would not face the death penalty, describing it as another step toward apartheid. At least 9 Palestinians were killed and others injured in Zionist airstrikes across Gaza on Tuesday. In Khan Yunis, 2 family members, including a child, were killed. Airstrikes on a police station in Rafah left 4 dead and several wounded. In northern Gaza, drone strikes hit Jabalia and the Tufah neighborhood, killing 2 people and injuring others. A girl was also killed by a drone in Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. At least 10 Lebanese were killed Tuesday in a Zionist attack that began on March 2nd. Airstrikes hit Hasmiya and Sfera and Tyre, killing 5 and wounding dozens, while shelling in Nabatiya left 4 dead. In Beirut's southern suburbs, 1 person was killed and 17 wounded. The health ministry says the overall toll has risen to 1,268 dead and 3,750 wounded, with hospitals targeted and put out of service since the start of the attacks. The UNDP warns the Middle East war could trigger major economic and social fallout. Air freight between Asia, the Middle East, and Europe has dropped 40%, while shipping through the Strait of Hormuz fell over 70%. The conflict could cost 3.6 million jobs, push 4 million people into poverty, and inflict $200 billion in losses across the Arab countries. Oil prices climbed for a 4th straight day Tuesday, driven by supply concerns as conflict escalates in the Middle East. Brent crude rose 2% to $113 a barrel. U.S. West Texas Intermediate edged up to $102.90. The International Monetary Fund warned that the Middle East war threatens fragile economic recoveries and is creating a global shock. Experts highlighted rising financial pressures with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and damaged infrastructure, causing the biggest disruption to global oil supplies in recent memory. And speaking of energy, at a gas industry conference in Iran, experts say natural gas will remain central to the global energy mix for decades to come. They point to the current geopolitical landscape and praise Algeria's leading role in securing future supplies. Salman Asib has more.
Amid structural transformations reshaping global energy markets, natural gas is emerging as a fundamental resource essential for achieving a safe energy transition. Data indicators and international outlooks confirm that this resource will continue to play a central role in the global energy mix and remain a solid pillar for development beyond 2050.
The European Union, starting from 2022, has been revising its position by classifying natural gas as a clean transitional energy source. Accordingly, gas is expected to maintain a key role in the long term, especially as future plans are centered around achieving full carbon neutrality by 2015.
As a strategic resource trusted by major players in the energy market, Algeria is strengthening its position as a reliable supplier, ensuring stable deliveries far from geopolitical disruptions. This reliability is reflected in logistics supported by continental pipeline networks and flexible production facilities, making Algeria one of the most disciplined countries in balancing supply and demand.
Algeria has developed advanced infrastructure for offshore gas pipelines, whose investment costs have already been recovered. It also has significant capabilities in liquefied natural gas and enjoys a competitive advantage due to its lower production costs compared to American gas at present. In addition, it possesses accumulated expertise and a well-established operational culture, having remained a reliable gas supplier to Europe for over 6 decades. This creates promising prospects for seizing opportunities and maximizing the added value of its gas resources.
Participants in the 8th edition of the Algerian Gas Industry Association agree on the leading role of natural gas as a clean energy source and a key driver of sustainability. The focus has now shifted from traditional extraction to the urgent need for developing energy infrastructure, seen as the main guarantee for improving operational efficiency and maintaining competitiveness in a rapidly evolving global market.
Spanish police have uncovered an elaborate underground tunnel in Ceuta used to smuggle drugs from Morocco. The head of the anti-narcotics unit says the tunnel was 19 meters deep. 27 people were arrested in Ceuta and Galicia, and 17 tons of drugs were seized. That's all for tonight. Thank you for watching. See you next time.